For Melbourne.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I don't know whether I'm going to be on my own in this place, but I'll be opposing this bill. I'll be opposing this bill because it will do nothing to make Australia safer. It will divide us into two classes of citizens based on whether you've got dual nationality or not, and it will trash one of the most fundamental principles of civil law and the English constitutional system that we've taken for granted for many years, which is that if you're born in the country, you're a citizen of the country and it's not the Parliament's prerogative to take it away. Now, if you are born in Australia, you are a citizen of Australia, and if you do something wrong by breaking the laws, you get prosecuted, and if you're convicted, you get locked up. It's called having a system of laws. It's called the rule of law. And under the rule of law, you get a trial. And if you are found guilty, you suffer the consequences. And that is as it should be. That is the case whether you commit a parking fine or whether you commit murder or whether you commit terrorist-related offences. And that is as it should be as well. What this bill does is take a further step and say, if you commit a certain category of offences and you happen to also be a dual national, well, the Immigration Minister can decide you're no longer a citizen, can decide you are no longer a citizen. And I don't know that there's that many people who were born in Australia who would be looking at the Immigration Minister at the moment and say, I'd trust him to decide whether I get to remain a citizen or not. People would say, if you are convicted of an offence, you do your time. You do your time. If you're convicted of one of the most heinous terrorism-related offences, expect to go away for a long time. If it's a legitimate terrorist offence where you've been convicted of causing or threatening to cause harm to the Australian people, and that's what most people would expect. But I don't think people would expect to say, well, then go somewhere we've never gone before, which is to say the Immigration Minister can now do something with the stroke of a pen and take away your citizenship as well. There's no evidence. There's absolutely no evidence that this is going to make us any safer, and even a moment's reflection makes you understand why. If you are someone who wishes to do so much harm to people in Australia that you want to kill them or plant a bomb, to the point where perhaps you're prepared to kill yourself, as we've seen tragically recently around the world far too often, do you really think the fact that the Immigration Minister might be able to take away your citizenship is going to change your mind? If you're prepared to kill yourself as you take out the lives of others around you, a law like this is going to do nothing. It's going to do nothing to stop someone from taking that heinous, barbaric step. That's why, when this bill has been scrutinised, you struggle to find any evidence in support of it, but you find many, many people whose job it is in civil society to stand up to parliamentarians at times when emotion could get the better of this place and to say, no, look, hang on, you need some sober judgment. If you are going to be changing laws with respect to citizenship, don't breach, they have pleaded with us, do not breach the fundamental principle that someone who is born here remains a citizen unless they choose to voluntarily renounce it. Don't breach that. Now, that is from some of the defenders of some of the most basic legal institutions in our country, human rights institutions in our country, who have come forward and said this bill is dangerously and irreparably flawed. And coming as it does in this current political context, it is deeply, deeply unfortunate. It is deeply unfortunate that we are asked to come here and pass this bill and rush it through. In the aftermath of the horrific attacks in Paris, Waleed Aly on the project gave a speech that I think summarised and spoke to where most of the Australian population is at. And he said, and it's worth reminding ourselves of what he said, because it is germane to exactly this kind of bill and exactly this kind of response from parliamentarians. He said, and I quote, "There's no doubt that this was an Islamist terrorist attack probably executed under ISIL's flag. What we don't know yet is if the attack was planned, ordered or funded by ISIL's leaders in Syria. Because the problem is, this is what ISIL do. They take credit for any act of terror on Western soil so that ISIL appear bigger and tougher than they actually are. They did the same thing last year with a shooting at Canada's Parliament, and when a bloke ran around New York with a hatchet attacking people, and again with a Sydney siege. ISIL didn't control these guys. They were DIY terrorists who recruited themselves, but ISIL doesn't want you to know that. How do I know? Because ISIL told us that they don't want you to know that in their monthly magazine. Because they told us that they don't want you to know that in their monthly magazine. In October last year they wrote, "It's important that the killing becomes attributed to patrons of the Islamic State who have obeyed its leadership. This can easily be done with anonymity. Otherwise, Crusader media make such attacks appear to be random killings." There's a reason, Waleed Aly went on to say, ISIL want to appear so powerful. The reality is all the land they control has been taken from weak enemies. They're pinned down by airstrikes, and just last weekend they lost a significant part of their territory. They really don't have the capacity to hit back against the combat aircraft of the West. ISIL don't want you to know that they would be quickly crushed if they ever faced a proper army on a real battlefield. They want you to fear them. They want you to get angry. They want all of us to become hostile. And here's why. ISIL's strategy is to split the world into two camps. It's that black and white. Again, we know this because they told us. Last year, they declared, "There is no grey zone in this crusade against the Islamic State. The world is split into two encampments, one for the people of faith, the other for the people of disbelief, all in preparation for the final Great War." They want to start World War III, a global war between Muslims and everyone else. That's what they want to create. They want societies like France and here in Australia to turn on each other. They want countries like ours to reject their Muslims and vilify them. ISIL leaders would be ecstatic to hear that since the atrocity in Paris, Muslims have been threatened and attacked in England, America and here in Australia, because this evil organisation has it in their heads that if they can make Muslims the enemy of the West, then Muslims in France, England, America and here in Australia will have nowhere to turn but to ISIL. It's exactly what they did in Iraq, and now they want to go global. Saying that out loud, it's both dumbfounding in its stupidity and blood-curdling in its barbarity. We're all feeling a million raging emotions right now. I'm angry at these terrorists. I'm sickened by the violence. I'm crushed for the families that have been left behind, but I won't be manipulated. We all need to come together. I know that's how that sounds. It's a cliche, but it's also true. It's exactly what ISIL doesn't want. If you are a member of Parliament or has been a member of Parliament, preaching hate at a time when we need love, you're helping ISIL. They've told us that. If you're a Muslim leader telling your community they have no place here, or a non-Muslim basically saying the same thing, you're helping ISIL. They've told us that. Or whether you're just someone with a Facebook or Twitter account firing off misguided missives of hate, you're just helping ISIL. They've told us that. And pretty sure, he said, right now, none of us want to help these bastards. Now, that is what the Australian people are feeling, and that is spot on. And that is spot on. And that is why it is so disappointing that this Tony Abbott-era piece of legislation is being brought before the Parliament this week, where we are being asked to say, even if you were born here, if you happen to have a dual nationality, you're now going to have less rights than everyone else, and the Immigration Minister can just take away your citizenship. That is sending precisely the wrong message at precisely the wrong time. It is exactly in these moments that we must defend the principles that are under attack. And those principles include a very basic one, which is that if you're born in a country, you're a citizen of that country. And it's not up to a minister of the day to decide to take that away. Do something wrong, expect to be prosecuted, expect even to go to jail, expect potentially to go to jail for a very long time. But to say all of a sudden you are now no longer a citizen everyone is telling us, a bridge too far. So I urge the government to listen to what the Prime Minister said at the start of question time today, because that was the response in many respects that people were looking for. That is exactly the kind of response that the country wants. The country does not want us to start creating two classes of citizens. The country does not want us in this Parliament to start giving up the basic rights that have been fought for and that now many are arguing are under attack. So I'm not prepared to give up a fundamental principle about the relationship between citizens and the state. I am prepared to join with, I think, every other member of this parliament to say that people who want to do us harm deserve to have the full force of the law brought down on them, but this is not going to make us safer. It is going to divide people, and it's a bridge too far.